Do you like the park?
Yes.
Yeah. Is it better than the hospital?
Yes.
2 years ago, Frank Wusinski and his then 3-year-old daughter Annabelle were among those evacuated from Wuhan, China, and put into quarantine at MCAS Miramar.
It was a good thing that we did that. But on the other hand, there's a feeling of guilt that I left my wife in probably the worst time of her life.
Wusinski's wife had to stay in China, and the 2-week quarantine, which included a hospital visit, was not easy on their daughter Annabelle.
In her mind, it's mommy not wanting to see her. Just kind of explain as simply as you can is, mommy misses you, mommy loves you.
The dad and daughter were flown into San Diego on unmarked planes. Some of more than 200 Americans and their families quarantined inside of base hotel rooms. For San Diegans, it was their first local experience with coronavirus.
Well, I think most people were just confused and trying to understand, what is this all about?
Then County Supervisor's Board Chair Greg Cox says he wasn't sure what to expect.
It's one of these things you're kind of figuring, well, is this just kind of a passing problem? I mean, we had problems with swine flu, with H1N1, and those were just kind of Ebola. Those were just kind of blips on the radar screen that, okay, people were kind of following what was going on, but for the most part, it never impacted their lives. And now this was something that looked like it was potentially going to be much bigger, and as it turned out, it certainly was.
If anyone got sick, they were not allowed to stay at MCAS Miramar. The county's chief medical officer, Dr. Eric McDonald, was in charge of figuring out care locally.
We knew it was a big deal because this was something that had not been done in 50 years. I mean, literally, large-scale federal quarantine. What I remember was when we first got the call that maybe San Diego might be a location, I was like, why us? And then I was trying to think of how can we get out of this, okay? But then we quickly figured out, oh no, this is where it's going to be.
McDonald ended up asking UC San Diego Health and Rady Children's Hospital to be ready if anyone felt sick. Back then, test samples had to be sent to the CDC lab in Atlanta, which took a few days for results.
Really, the heavy burden of what to do in terms of management fell on UCSD and Rady Children's to be able to figure out the infection control.
7 patients were ultimately taken to UCSD and Rady's. Of those 7 that developed symptoms, 2 tested positive. They were the 13th and 14th cases of COVID in the U.S.
You assume the worst, that is the most contagious, and you work down from there.
UC San Diego Health's Dr. Francesca Torriani helped coordinate care for the 7 patients.
You could see really the worry of some of being not welcomed and of really being afraid.
Torriani says they knew it was a respiratory virus, but they were unclear how easily it could spread, so the patients were put inside special negative pressure rooms that were designed for contagious Ebola patients.
We were at the maximum containment for all of these patients.
The safety protocols worked. No staff members ended up contracting the virus, and while one patient did have an experimental treatment, everyone left the hospital okay. All of the evacuees ended up leaving the base before March came, and then we started seeing cases among local residents. There were some valuable lessons learned during the federal quarantine, like how to safely transport COVID-positive patients.
So I got our pre-hospital system kind of geared up to be able to handle that, all the way to just the logistics of how to support a lot of people in one place who were on quarantine with food, with housing, with social service support.
Torriani says for some of the patients there was a language barrier, but she was focused on making them feel welcome so far away from home.
Asking them what kind of food did they want would help them, giving them hot water and a teapot so that they could find some humanity. That was so touching and so important. Just to make them feel, less afraid.
During the quarantine period, the San Diego community showed their support. Military spouses organized food, toy, and book donations. Some local schools even sent in Valentine's Day cards. This early COVID experience helped prepare San Diego officials when just a few weeks later, cruise ship passengers had to be quarantined and then unsheltered residents were isolated at the convention center. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.